Hello, in this video we're going to write a JavaFX program to display a tic-tac-toe board. So we're going to be using image objects for rendering the noughts and crosses. We're going to be using a grid pane object to align all of the elements of our board, and we're going to be generating a random board to display. We're not programming the game just yet, but let's go over to Eclipse and get started. The first thing we need to do is create a new project. This is going to be a JavaFX project called Display Tic-Tac-Toe. Next up, we'll add a new class to this in the default package, also called Display Tic-Tac-Toe. Alright, the first thing we'll do is import a whole bunch of classes from JavaFX. So I'm just going to type away and get all these done. Why is that doing that? What I want is image view. Okay, so we've got application, pos, which stores a position, and then we have some familiar ones: scene, grid pane, stage, image, and image view. So next up, we will make our display tic-tac-toe class extend from application. Maybe it's because of where I'm putting the mouse cursor. Not sure. And we'll start writing our start method. Okay, I'll just maximize this to give us some more space. The first thing we're going to need to do is load two image, which is so we're going to have one image for our X or our cross and another image for our O or naught. I don't know what the terminology is for playing tic-tac-toe in different countries. I would call it a game of noughts and crosses, but there you go. It's the same thing. Anyway, our image object, we're going to have one called image X. This is going to be equal to a new image. And the path to our image, the file name, is image/x.gif. We're going to do exactly the same thing for our other symbol. So we've got image O, and this is the file o.gif. Easy. We've loaded our two images. The next thing we're going to do is create a grid pane. Now, grid pane aligns graphical elements in a nice rigid grid structure, which is perfect for a game of tic-tac-toe. So we're going to have our grid pane object, and we'll call this pane. And we're going to use the default constructor for the grid pane class. What we're going to do next is set the alignment of our grid pane, so where things are centered in their spot on the grid. So we have pane.set alignment, and this is going to be equal to pos.center. Next up, we're going to set some spacing between elements in our grid, and the way we're going to do this is by setting the horizontal and vertical gap. The method we want is set hgap, and we're going to set this to 5. Then we're going to do the exact same thing for the vertical, or v gap. So I just need to change this to v. Next up, we're going to have a for loop and a nested for loop to randomly generate our tic-tac-toe board. So our outer loop is going to look like for int I equals 0, I less than 3, because a tic-tac-toe board is 3 by 3, I plus plus, and then we're immediately going to have our nested inner loop. So for int j equals 0, j is also less than 3, j plus plus. Now, what we're going to do is generate a random number, and this random number is going to specify whether the symbol at our particular grid cell is going to be a naught or a cross. So the way we're going to do this is pretty simple. We're going to have an integer called status, and this is going to be a random number. So we're going to use math.random. Remember, this returns a random double in the range of 0 to 1, so we need to multiply this by 3, which will give us a number in the range of 0 to 3. And then we need to typecast the whole lot to an int. Sorry, a number from 0 to 2, I should have said. But anyway, we typecast this to an int to get rid of any decimal places, and now we have an integer in the range of 0 to, 0 to 2. Now what we're going to do is, if status is equal to 0, we're going to set this cell to a cross. If status is equal to 1, we're going to set this cell to a naught or an O. And if it's 2, remember we've got a number in the range of 0 to 2, then we're going to leave it blank, meaning this cell is still in play. So this is quite simple. We have an if statement. You could also do this with a switch, I guess, but we're going to use an if. So if it's 0, we're going to add a new image view storing a cross at this position. So we're going to get our pane and add a new image view with our image x object, and then the index is going to be j for the column and I for the row. And that's what we need for this. Next up, we have else if status equals 1. We're going to do something similar, so I'm going to copy and paste this line of code. But instead, we're going to set this cell to image O. And if it's not 0 or 1, we're going to leave it blank. So that's all we need in our for loop. What we're going to do next is create a new scene object. New scene. And we're going to set our pane as the parent object. Next up, we're going to add this to our stage and draw the stage on screen. So, actually before that, why don't we set the title to display tic-tac-toe. Next up, we'll set the scene to our scene object we just created. And then show that. And that's all we need for this. So what I'll do now is create a quick main method. And call launch. Alright, that's all we need for this code, but what I need to do now is copy the images into position. So here's my Eclipse workspace, and what I'm going to do is find display tic-tac-toe, navigate to the folder where our compiled class lives, so bin, and paste in the image folder, which I had previously copied, by the way. So now let's go over to Eclipse and run this program. So I've already saved this. Let's hit run. And you can see we get an awesome tic-tac-toe board. And this is always centered in our window, which is exactly what we want. So there you go, a random tic-tac-toe board. It's a bit weird because the crosses have taken so many more turns than the noughts, but that's okay. Another way to do this, by the way, would have been to alternate between naught and cross in our loop and then randomly generate a cell where it was going to be put. But we haven't done that. But anyway, we run this a few times and we'll get a different board. Crosses are going crazy, but that's just random numbers, I guess. There, that one looks a little bit more realistic, but still not quite. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That wasn't the point of this video. The point of this video was to demonstrate how we could use a few things. Firstly, image objects and image view objects for drawing images on screen, grid pane for aligning things in a nice grid pattern, and yeah, that was it. We randomly generated a tic-tac-toe board. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.